Greetings and welcome to Poster Fair number 3, International Networks, International Health and Cultures. Today we will have a panel of 6 presenting their posters. We will have every panelist present for 10 minutes, followed by Q&A. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A feature below. First up, we'll have Cataloging Ghanaian Children's Play Lore by Dr. Akosua Adu. Next, Exploring Cultural Values and Building Friendships Through Photo Elicitation, Miss Rachel Hicks. Then Highlighting Cultural Practices that Support Maternal Wellbeing Across the Globe by Dr. Neil Hubin. Followed by Call to Glory, Ghanaians Celebrating the Life of a Deceased Loved One Pre-COVID-19 by Dr. Brenda McGadney. Then Developing Neurology Care and Training in Zambia by Dr. Deanna Saylor. Then finally, 3 Fulbrights, 3 continents, nearly 3 decades, One Scholar's Photographic Journal of Relationships in Estonia, Kenya, and India by Dr. Jay Wenger. Now I will turn it over to Dr. Akosua Adu for the first presentation. You're currently muted, so make sure you unmute yourself, but we can see your screen now, it looks good.
Thank you all for coming to our session, and thank you to Fulbright for awarding me this Fulbright Scholar 2019. As you know, my name is Akosua Adu, and I'm speaking to you from Minnesota, from the Minnesota Bahoe lands, traditional ancestral lands, homelands of the Dakota Oyate. By offering this land acknowledgement, I recognize the sovereignty of the Dakota and acknowledge the landowners of the spaces that we're privileged to work. And welcome to our session. Despite the increasing interest in sub-Saharan African children's law, there's been little effort to examine the access and organization of patterns for documenting and archiving them for research and pedagogy. As part of an extended examination of play dialectics, my project for Fulbright among children in Ghana, I needed to assemble all the material I had on children's singing games to facilitate access. Till then, I did not know of any, and until today, I do not know of any digital archive on Ghanaian children's play law. Therefore, I created a virtual space for cataloging, storing, and disseminating my data. The process was challenging and raised questions and offered possibilities for both research and pedagogy. In my presentation today, I asked 2 questions. How will the properties of Ghanaian children's play law inform the archive's development? And what are my long-term plans for storage, cataloging, maintenance, and retrieval for research and pedagogy? Objectives of the archive was definitely to provide access to children's singing games in Ghana, and also to provide a model for archiving and documenting them for research and method. The database combines my archive of previously collected ethnographic research on singing games since 1993, and with field notes, videos, music, text, and transcriptions. I visited other sites where I previously collected singing games for review and updates in 2019. I reviewed, previously organized my collected singing games into cultural and analytical categories of current play culture research. Most of my tapes were hour-long sessions and in a series of games and field conversations. Therefore, I organized the data in 2 ways: a field experience in long videos, hour-long videos, and individual games tagged as in categories and downloaded to a public site to maintain control of my data. Secondly, I explored our university's digital content library for examples to set up and the items, and learned how to set up my own metadata. Third, I reviewed my data and reduced them into creating data banks of non-linear video chunks, and I left long data streams to provide a context for the singing games during data collection, music transcription, compiling text, and detailing movement elements. Fourth, the tool I used for managing the collection of field notes, audio, and video was Elevator, an information retrieval program. Elevator is an incredibly flexible and cloud-based open source platform for digital asset storage, organization, and display. It supports a wide range of materials and allows for basic and advanced searches. Therefore, I focused on the principle on musical, textual, kinesthetic, spatial, and social using an ethnographic lens. The social provides a narrative of the dialogues and indicates these in thematic ways. Therefore, I organized the system in this way. I had videos, audio, and images, names of performances, performers, dates, location, thematic classification, type of games, audio link, music transcription, and text transcription. Since I was using 8mm video cassettes to capture the and VHS tapes, I worked with the university's Liberal Arts, Technology and Innovation Services Lattice to digitize all my data from over 30 years. And the library also supported me in providing in-depth expertise in this area, the University of Minnesota Libraries. I also contacted our digital arts, science, and humanities program, and they provided me with by digitizing all the data from September 2019 to December. Here is a snapshot of the archive. And I'll click on one of the games.
Kosoa?
Yes?
Yeah, we can't see the video at the moment. If you have a video up.
Oh,
If
sorry.
you want to reshare a different window, you can.
Oh, right. There was smiling. So I'm so sorry. Stop share, reshare, share screen, back to video. I was hoping it would work beautifully. Okay, that's okay. Maybe stop it there and continue. Thank you. So some of the challenges, the time codes for digitizing the videos didn't line up because they were old, and therefore I had to recode all my timelines. I had to look at whole scenes and versus individual games and decide how to work clipping my old my whole scenes into names of sites. My challenge was in deciding whether to keep the length and whether to edit them out because I was approved to protect the names of the places and the kids. I would risk the violating the terms of my ethical approval while some of the data I collected was with my students later on. Another critical question to ask myself was, who were the protagonists in this project and how do I protect the children's identities? At the same time, the archives had children from 1993, were all adults at this stage, but in more recent collections caused me to pause. Do I cover the faces of still children, and even though even with ethics clearance, I needed to be aware of my participants' protections. I also underestimated the scope of this project. While it brings me joy to dig into the field data, it's an ongoing project and was much larger than I had expected. After archiving an elevator, I need now then to bring my finished product to the university's open content library for access to for other wide range of researchers, educators, researchers, and parents. While the library is presently closed, it will become an open archive, providing a comprehensive digital library of Ghanaian children's law, accessible through an online catalog. The archive will be open on the publication of the books project, which goes with this archive. It will not be for commercial use, of course. Creating access to Ghanaian children's singing games, I move beyond other folklore archives. This archive looks out and in, so to speak, providing emic and ethic user engagement with folklore. Music educators, folklorists, and researchers will experience the breadth of Ghanaian children's lore while the life and enable me to analyze children's singing games at this point. At this point, I'd like to invite you to provide suggestions for improving this work when we come to the interview section. And I want to thank the JW Fulbright US Scholar Award for funding this project, in addition to the University of Minnesota's sabbatical supplement, and of course, my host institution, the University of Cape Coast in Ghana. Thank you for listening. I'll hand it over to Rachel. Yes, 10 minutes, sharp.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Dr. Akosua, or Dr. Ada, sorry. Let me pull up my slides. There we go. All right. So thank you everyone for coming today to hear our presentations. Thank you for this chance to share some of my work. My name is Rachel Imrine Hicks, and I am a PhD candidate at the Anthropology Department in UC San Diego, and I participated in a student research Fulbright in 2019 to the Solomon Islands. Today, I'll be sharing some of the photos I collected as part of a photo project with some students at schools there. Before I do that, I would like to show you where the Solomon Islands are. In case you're unfamiliar, the Solomon Islands are an archipelago of over 900 islands that stretch from Papua New Guinea in the west to Vanuatu in the east. My research took place in 2 locations. I collected data in Honiara, the capital, which is in Guadalcanal province, as well as in Buala, a small provincial town in Isabel province. In both places, I was situated at a community high school and also did work in the surrounding communities. My Fulbright year was part of 17 months of fieldwork data that I collected between 2017 and 2019. I engaged in lots of different ethnographic methods, including participant observation, interviews, and social network analysis. For this presentation, as I said, I'll share some photos from the project, and then I'll also reflect on the ways that this project enabled me to build relationships with the students. So why a photo project? Well, my research seeks to understand what youth are learning in school, both the practical skills and knowledge, as well as the way that schooling influences their cultural values, their identities, and their connections to home. Trying to understand what's happening in schools was something I was able to do through participant observation, observing class lessons and looking at the curriculum. But understanding these cultural values was a little bit harder to observe. So I decided to design a photo elicitation project where I asked students to identify the important parts of their lives through their own photography. I chose this method because similar projects have allowed youth to express themselves and limit the power differential between researcher and participants. As I designed this project, I loosely followed the visual narrative elicitation process that Wentworth 27 describes. I will share references to these different photo projects that help guide my research at the end if anyone is interested. From the classes where I was already doing observations, I invited students to join the photo project. I gave each student a camera for 1 week and asked them to take photos of their daily lives, of the people, places, or things that are important to them. After taking the photos, I asked students to choose 10 to 15 photos that I would print. I then asked them to describe on a worksheet what was in the photo, where it was taken, and why it was important to them. Once these worksheets were complete, I asked students to either participate in a one-on-one or a small group interview. And in these interviews, we just further discussed what was in the photos, why they took them. And I also added questions about the context, trying to understand more about their students' lives as well. So these photos, as I said, became a tangible way to discuss concepts and values that are harder to identify just in conversations and observations. So lots of different topics emerged from this. The most frequent topics that students identified were friends, family, cultural practices, schooling, church, and the natural environment. For the sake of time, I'll share about 2 of these today. So the natural environment. The Solomon Islands is a beautiful country. It has clear seas, blue skies, colorful flowers, green trees. I highly recommend you visit if you ever have the chance to go. So it was no surprise when students took pictures of the natural environment because of the beauty that they saw in it. For example, this hibiscus flower you see on the top, this student took it just because she said it's her favorite flower and she thinks it's beautiful. Similarly, the picture of the sky, sea, and trees that you see in the bottom right-hand corner is looking out from one of the students' schools, is the view from Honiara looking out from the school. And the student told me that whenever she saw this view, it reminded her of the good things in her life, which is why she wanted to take that photo. Then other photos of the natural environment move just beyond the beauty and we're thinking about the functionality of what the environment provided them. Lots of students took pictures of their gardens and plants. So this picture of the papaya tree in the bottom left-hand corner was taken by a student who said, sometimes when money is short and they don't have food for meals, they're always able to rely on their garden and this papaya tree to have food. Similarly, the coconut tree in the top right corner was taken by student Isabel, who talked about all the different things the coconut tree provides. Food from the fruit, the leaves for weaving, fans and mats, the trunk for firewood. So it's something that provided for her family and was also something they could sell for income. Similarly, this island was another picture that a student Isabel took. There are lots of islands that people visit just for a day at the beach and to enjoy the beauty, like many of us here in the US do. But this particular island was one that she described as a place for the birds to live and also a place for the people to go fishing and to collect shells, which they then sold for income. So another topic that I thought was very interesting that arose from this was the cultural practices, or in Solomon Islands Pidgin, which is the lingua franca everyone speaks, it's called custom. So cultural practices was something that emerged a lot more from the Honiara photos than it did from the Isabel photos. And the reasons this occurred is something I'll be discussing more in my dissertation. But kind of as a brief summary, one of the reasons I think this is occurring is Honiara is a very multi-ethnic environment. There are people from all the different provinces live within Honiara. And for this reason, it becomes a place with a lot of different cultural practices that are mixing together. And many of the youth I worked with grew up in Honiara, but they still considered their home province or the place from where their parents were from as a key marker of their identity. So these identity markers were displayed through lots of different cultural things, such as in the bottom left, you see a picture of some dancers. Dancing was something that was performed at almost every celebration and assembly and event that I attended in Honiara. This particular one is some Polynesian dancers performing at a graduation ceremony. And every province, every island group even has their own dances that kind of mark where they're from. Another example is the Sikiana Cultural Village. The Sikiana are a group of Polynesians who live in the outer islands of the Solomon Islands. And this particular cultural center is outside Honiara. And it's a place for the Sikiana community to come together to learn and showcase their practices like weaving, cooking, and dancing. Another common evidence of cultural practices that many students took pictures of was the Malaitan shell money. Malaita is one of the largest provinces in the Solomons, and for this reason, a lot of people in Honiara are from Malaita. And this Malaitan shell money is a very key marker of Malaitan identity. So the picture in the middle on the top shows some shell money being sold at the Honiara Central Market. The smaller necklaces and jewelry are kind of everyday jewelry that people would buy and wear, but the larger bundles of shell money, as well as the large and more intricate necklaces, are the type of shell money that's exchanged for customary practices, things like bride price, gifts of Thanksgiving, and sympathy. The picture on the right shows some shell money being displayed at a marriage ceremony. This is being exchanged for the bride. So in both the cases of the dances and the shell money, we see students emphasizing the importance of these cultural practices to them. They said in their interviews and their worksheets that Solomon's is diverse. So they needed to showcase this as well as to display their identities. Another thing that many students told me is that these cultural practices were something they thought was important. And for this reason, they didn't want to lose them, which is why they were taking photos of them. The young woman who took the picture of the Sikiana Cultural Village said to me something that stuck with me. She said, the moment you lose your culture is the moment you lose yourself. So through these photos, as I said, I was able to collect great, rich ethnographic data about the things that students found important. But it also moved beyond that. I mean, it became a great way for me to build relationships with students. Many youth in Solomon Islands are very timid when talking to expats. Especially if they think you might speak to them in English. I did all my conversations with them were in Solomon Islands Pidgin, but even still, some students were shy to talk with me. So by having these photos, instead of having to ask them questions about what's your family life or where are you from, what do you like, we were able to talk to the photos, which removed some of the awkwardness in the conversation. So instead, I could ask them, who's in this photo? Why did you take it? What are they doing here? And through that, I was able to still learn about the students' lives and what they valued and why. And in turn, they would ask me questions about my own life. They asked me about my schooling, my family. I was able to show pictures on my phone and in photo albums about what my life is like. So it became a form of cultural exchange in that sense as well. And ways that we could learn about the ways we're similar as well as the ways we're different. So these interviews helped me develop deeper relationships with the students. And some of these students are the ones that I'm still in contact with through Facebook and Messenger. And I hope that I'll be able to continue maintain and follow up with these students in future trips to the Solomon Islands. So the reason I wanted to share some of this research is I think that it's an important thing for us to think about for future Fulbrighters who might be going overseas, for those who work with students who are preparing to go on Fulbrights, thinking about ways to engage in participatory methods or ways that engage the host community. One of the goals of Fulbright is to build these cross-cultural friendships, and sometimes this is hard to do when you're coming in as an outsider. So I found that this photo project was a way that I was able to get past some of the differences and build common ground together. And there's been lots of great examples of this throughout this conference this week. So it's just one of the ways that I was able to do that, and I hope to encourage others to think about as well. So my last slide, I know that's a lot of resources. If anyone's interested, I'm happy to email them to you and I'll share the slides later. But yeah, I just want to thank you so much for listening to my presentation. Thank you for those who enabled it, both in the Solomon Islands and the Fulbright Foundation for funding it. And yeah, I look forward to your questions and discussion at the end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Dr. Brenda McGadney, you'll go next, actually. Dr. Brenda?
Okay, here I am. Now, let's see if I can share my screen. Can you see it?
Can't see it yet.
Okay, hold on a minute. Oh, boy. This is...
There should be just a green share screen button at the bottom of your Zoom.
Yeah, but I've lost the... Hold on one second.
Okay.
This is... Okay, now, it's not showing on my entire screen. That's the problem. Oh.
If you'd like, we can go on to the next presenter and come back if you'd like.
That would be good. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Deanna Saylor, you're up.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to this presentation today, and thank you to Fulbright for the opportunity to share the work that I did during my Fulbright in Zambia. So my name is Deanna Saylor. I'm an assistant professor of neurology at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine and director of our global neurology program. And I was a Fogarty Scholar in Zambia for the 2018 and 2019 calendar years, working on a project to develop neurology care and training in Zambia. So the first question you may be asking is why neurology and why Zambia? And the reason for that is that neurological disorders are actually the leading cause of disability and the second leading cause of mortality worldwide. 75% of this disease burden is actually in low and middle income countries. And these are the same countries that have the smallest neurological workforce to care for these patients. So this graph here shows the number of neurologists per 100,000 people in the population by country income level. And you can see that in high income countries, there are almost 5 neurologists for every 100,000 people, compared to 0.03 or 0.13 neurologists per 100,000 people in low income and lower middle income countries, respectively. If we then look by world region, you can see that in Europe, there are about 6.5 neurologists for every 100,000 people, and that reduces to 0.04 neurologists in Africa. In the US, our number is a little over 5 for every 100,000 people in the population. And in Zambia, our number is 0.02. So we have very, very few neurologists to serve the population. So just a little bit about Zambia. Most of you probably know that it is a country in South Central Africa. It's about 18 million people, of whom 3/4 live on less than $1 a day. It has the 7th highest HIV prevalence in the world at about 12%, and it's one of the World Health Organization's 30 high TB burden countries in the world as well. And to combat these two epidemics, as well as COVID and all of the non-communicable diseases that are growing, it has about 1/3 the number of recommended doctors. When I arrived in January of 2018, there were 4 expatriate neurologists, including myself, serving the entire country, and there weren't any Zambian neurologists. The other 3 neurologists were predominantly focused on research. They did a half day of outpatient clinic a week, but there wasn't really anyone teaching or training people to become neurologists in Zambia. And so that's what I really set out to do. So I was based at the University Teaching Hospital, which is the academic hospital associated with the University of Zambia School of Medicine. It's located in the capital city of Lusaka. It's the largest hospital in Zambia. So there are 1,655 official beds, but that doesn't include patients in the hallways or in the aisles or sharing a bed because it's overcrowded. And just to put that into context, at my home institution at Johns Hopkins, which is a relatively large academic hospital in the US, there are less than 1,200 beds. UTH also serves as the national referral hospital and the primary teaching hospital in Zambia. And when we arrived in 2018, there was no inpatient neurology service. Neurology patients were cared for on an internal medicine service by general medicine doctors who'd been taught neurology by other general medicine doctors who'd also been taught by general medicine doctors. And so there'd really been no neurologists teaching neurology to the physicians in the country. So the baseline level of neurology was quite low in general. So we again arrived in January of 2018. I should mention that I'm actually presenting this to you from Lusaka right now. After my 2 years of support from Fulbright ended, I was able to find other support to continue the work. And so we've now been here for almost 4 years. And we immediately set about to develop how we were going to implement a system of inpatient neurology care at the hospital and how we were planning to expand our outpatient offerings. And then, of course, the most important part was how we were going to train Zambian physicians to become neurologists. So just to give you an idea of the clinical setting that we were working in, this is a picture of the general medicine wards at UTH. So you can see that there are 3 different levels, and each one of these floors, and you can tell they're quite massive here, is basically a big open room. And there are lots and lots of beds in this open space. There are some curtains that we can pull down to try to provide some privacy for our patients, but it's really difficult to actually have private conversations about someone's health and care in this setting. And then here's a picture of one of our first neurology trainees, Dr. Mashina Chamba, actually examining a patient. You can see that we also had medical students on rounds with us most days. So we weren't just training the neurologists, but maybe some future neurologists, and just generally trying to increase the level of neurology knowledge amongst future physicians as well. So as you can imagine, trying to function in this environment, there were many, many challenges. We often did not have the medications that we needed. We often were very limited in our diagnostics that were available to us. Even the ancillary services that we're really blessed to rely on in the US, the physical therapist, the nutrition support, the speech therapist, they really weren't there at all. Nursing shortages, in the US, one nurse is assigned 3 or 4 patients, and in Zambia, the nurses are assigned 20 patients. And so the level of nursing care that can be provided is quite different. So there were certainly lots of days where we felt like we didn't have the right tools for the situation. There were some days where we ended up fighting ostriches with plastic chairs, but through it all, we persisted. And this has really been the work that I've been most proud of in my career so far. So this is a picture of October 1st, 2018, our first official day of neurology training. And these were our first 5 trainees. We have Stanley Zimba here in the red, and then Lorraine Chishimba and Mashina Chamba, who are the first 3 adult neurology trainees. And then we have Infama Kawatu and Lisa Nkole in the black, who are the first pediatric neurology trainees. And as I was developing the curriculum for this training program, there were really a lot of opportunities. There had never been a neurology training program in Zambia before, so there were really no preconceived notions about what it should or should not entail. And so I was really able to think about taking the strengths of traditional Zambian postgraduate training, which really had a heavy emphasis on didactic learning and protected time for the trainees to learn in a lecture setting, with the strengths of my training in the US, which really had a heavy emphasis on clinical care and bedside teaching, and combine the 2 of those in a way that I hope resulted in a blended and improved training experience. In Zambia, as opposed to the US, residency training is actually a master's degree program. So I needed to develop formal courses and assessments for a master's program through the University of Zambia as well. And in the end, our structure ended up following the traditional structure for specialist training in Zambia, which is 3 years of internal medicine and 2 years of neurology. This differs a little bit from the US, where people complete 1 year of internal medicine and then 3 years of neurology. The other thing that I wanted to be really intentional about as I was designing the program was creating an academic and research focus. I was very aware that we were really creating a new field of medicine in Zambia, and I wanted our graduates to have the interest and the skills and knowledge necessary to be able to take on new independent research projects that would answer locally relevant questions with local contextualized data that would then allow them to apply that knowledge to improve care for our patients, and also to advocate for more resources from the Ministry of Health. And so in doing this, we included a weekly journal club, research method seminars in our curriculum, and a focus on encouraging scholarly activity. And I must say that our trainees really just jumped to this challenge and have really excelled. They've already presented oral and poster presentations at multiple national, regional, and international scientific and neurology meetings. I think the other thing that I didn't fully appreciate before I started was the unanticipated spillover effect of just having neurologists and neurology services at the hospital. We were able to redesign the neurology curriculum for the medical students, and really just improve the general baseline neurology knowledge for the internal medicine residents and all of the students as well. So this was almost exactly a year ago, September 30th of last year. We had our first graduation. The first 6 Zambian neurologists ever graduated. And just to show that this program is still continuing to thrive, this was taken last month at a program planning meeting. We have Dr. Moses Mata here in the blue, who will be graduating in December. And then next year, we have 2 more trainees who will graduate, and we have 3 more scheduled scheduled to graduate the following year and 2 more the following year. And so we should have 15 graduates over the first 5 years of the program. And I think one of the greatest highlights of this past year for me has been having our first graduates really take on increasing roles in leadership and teaching and mentorship and clinical care, and showing me that as I continue to step away from leading the program, that hopefully we've really designed a sustainable program that will not be reliant on external support and will continue to provide excellent training for Zambian neurologists. And I think just to show you that this has really been, has turned into even more than just clinical training, our service has implemented several clinical innovations. As much of the US pivoted to telemedicine, we actually developed a very rudimentary teleneurology service here to make sure we could care for our vulnerable populations during clinic closures from COVID-19. That was essentially a telephone-based service, but really allowed continuity of care for our patients. We're in the midst of developing a low resource stroke center to improve outcomes for our stroke patients as well. We've really, I think, been quite innovative in the methods that we have tried to apply to our training program. And one of the silver linings of COVID for us has been that we took our didactic curriculum and moved it to a virtual curriculum and then began to offer access to interested trainees across the region. And we now routinely have learners joining us from Nigeria and Ghana and Kenya and Uganda and Tanzania and a variety of other places. And so it's really helped us to expand the reach of our program as well. Just to show you again that our trainees have really jumped into research and been excited. These are just some of the conditions that we have ongoing research studies in. These are primarily led by our trainees who often have received pilot grant funding and independent research funding to pursue these projects. So, this has really been very rewarding work for me, and it's been a blessing to be able to be here. I really want to thank Fulbright for funding me for the first 2 years, and then all of these additional funders who've allowed me to stay for an additional almost 2 years at this point. And certainly really thank the Zambian Ministry of Health, the University of Zambia School of Medicine, and the University Teaching Hospital for welcoming me and allowing me to work with them and with their faculty to develop this program. So thank you so much. This is a picture of beautiful Victoria Falls, and I look forward to taking your questions at the end.
Thank you, Dr. Saylor. Next, we'll have Dr. Jay Winger. Dr. Winger, are you available?
Yes, I am available.
Okay, great. The floor is yours.
Okay.
Jay, if you need any help sharing, let me know. Oh, you're muted right now. Jay, we can't see your screen if you've started sharing. Make sure that you hit the share screen at the bottom. If you want, we can have Brenda go first, and then we can come back to you, if that works. All right, Brenda, we'll have you go for it, okay? Oh, Brenda, you're muted.
I'm sharing my screen.
All right, go for it. I'll let you know.
Has it come up yet?
Not yet.
Okay. So when technology works, it's good, but when it doesn't, it makes you very nervous.
It's okay, it's all right.
And it should be coming up. Let's see. Okay, my goodness. Okay.
There you go, it's coming.
All right, so let me just say thank you for inviting me to do this session, and I will try to stay within the time allotted. This was an experience that I had in Ghana. It started in 1999. So basically it's just my experience, my personal observations of attending funerals. And in 1999, I was there to do a research project, and I was told by somebody that because the place I was staying was connected to the morgue, that we would not have any power outages. And they were absolutely correct about that. That had led me to a lot of opportunities to attend funerals later on, but also to be curious about why they said that. So in 2019, I was in Ghana for about 6 months because it was the year of return. This was the year that Ghanaians were celebrating and recognizing the 400 years post-slavery and the thousands and millions of Africans who were in the diaspora. I attended actually 5 funerals. 3 of those were people of family members or students of mine that I had known for well over 20 years from different ethnic groups. Funerals in Ghana are legendary. They are announced everywhere, on billboards, on posters, on the radio, TV, but very, very visual, very colorful in the celebration of life. Funerals, you can't go to a funeral without having the right kind of fabric, the correct color, or you'll be chastised. So white is often for people who are 70 and over, but you have red for family members and black for close relatives or extended kin or friends. The Dinka symbol is a symbol that's both Ghanaian and from Cote d'Ivoire, and those symbols represent history, philosophies, and they are on embedded in many of the fabrics that are used for those services. You have to be draped a certain way if you're in mourning. And certain colors during the day of the funeral and the weekend of the funeral. The brochure is most important because you have a biography of the family member, lots of photos, and written testimonials. Funeral on average, it's about 3 days, but someone can be in the morgue for as long as a year or several weeks or several years before the proper funeral is given. This particular woman was an African-American and Nigerian, and so she had many Ghanaian and African-American influences in her service. I went to the funerals at church, funeral home, a residence, a community center. And there's much pomp and circumstance if the person is of royalty, which this family was. One of my students' mother who passed away. And these are the testimonials from her children. This is the one funeral that I went to that was in a mortuary. And I happen to have known of this young man and his family for many years. The processional is also very important. These are both Boy Scouts and Girl Guides. And even in a mortuary, it is still a sanctimonious time when someone has died and is being carried to their last resting place. And the graveside rites are extremely important. So the services I went to were both in English and in Tree. So this minister is admonishing those who are still living that they still have an opportunity to get their lives right and to live a good life, because there's nothing you can do about the dead, but it is about the living and how they will meet their maker. And this is at the end of a service, the whole day, and at the end there was a lot of joy and happiness, celebrating the life of their lost loved ones. And there's always greetings to the family members. And in this case, this is my friend's, my former student's father, who actually got his PhD at the University of Pennsylvania in biology. And the reason why he and his wife were both royalty, but they also started a school and a hospital in the Ashanti region. So they were well recognized and respected. That's why there was so many hundreds at his wife's services. At the end, the family generally gives some type of keepsake to the sympathizers, and it could be anything from a bottle of juice to a bag to a handkerchief, but there's something that they leave for the sympathizers. I think I might be over time, so I'm going to stop right now, but I just wanted to thank you for this opportunity to present to you, and thank you for helping me through this session.
You did great, Dr. McGadney. Excellent presentation. Thank you so much. I already have some questions, but I'll save them for the end.
Okay.
Dr. Jay Wenger, you're up.
Hey, can you see my screen?
Yeah, looks great.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wenger, for your excellent presentation. Reminded me of a little bit of my Fulbright experience back in Egypt. Would all the other panelists please come on with your video and audio? We're going to start the Q&A portion of our presentation. Thank you everyone for attending. Oh, Neil, I see Neil has joined us.
It's saying my host won't start, has unstarted my video, so I can't see.
Sorry, I'll start it. Neil, did you just get out of surgery or something? I know we wanted to include you on the program, but right now we're in Q&A. Would you be able to present just briefly for us?
Oh, so is it already over?
No, we're just we're like an hour in right now. So
Oh, you know what? I must have not adjusted to whatever time zone. I thought it was started at 2 p.m., but it must have not been too central.
no worries, it's okay.
Okay, excellent. Yes, yeah, we love to present. Let me pull up my thing. I'm here with 2 medical students. Let's see, how do I switch it to share my, let's see, share screen. Okay. Okay. Are you able to see my screen?
Yep, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Well, first, we apologize for being late. We thought we were a couple minutes early, but it turns out we were an hour and a couple minutes late. My name is Neil. I'm a second-year OB-GYN resident at the University of Mississippi. I've got Aleix Alejandro, who is a 4th-year medical student, and Amanda Bordeaux, who is also a 4th-year medical student. Both Amanda and Aleix are going into obstetrics and gynecology as well. So they actually just did their first residency interview this morning. But we put together a PowerPoint looking at different cultural practices across the globe that are aimed at supporting maternal health. So our objective was just to highlight some of these practices. Of course, giving birth is both a unique experience and an experience that is shared by women from all across the globe, and it's something that connects all of us as human beings, as we all came into the world the same way. So there are some birth practices and traditions that are unique to different cultures, and they're certainly shaped by the cultures and societies in which they originate from. So we're hoping you all would join us on a quick trip across the globe as we highlight some unique practices that we came across from different countries and continents. So first, we'll have Aleix share a few with us.
Hello. So one of the first practices I wanted to talk about was called the Mutterpass, which is from Germany. And it's basically just a German maternity record, or what they call a passport. And what it just goes over is any information that happens during the mother's pregnancy. So this includes any testing, any vaccines that they received, any ultrasounds, her medical history, any prenatal complications, and any due dates and follow-ups. So this is meant just to have for the mother in case she gets into an emergency situation and she needs to see a provider that is not her regular physician. And so this helps providers be able to readily have all of the patient's information in front of them so that they can make better clinical decisions for the mother and the baby. And so this is great for mothers because it increases the quality of care and the speed of care that pregnant patients receive, especially in emergencies. And then we have ITS Focus, which is a Finnish government initiative, and it's called basically a maternity package for mothers. And this is offered to all new mothers in Finland, and it also includes adoptive parents. So what it is, it's a box, and in the box you have clothing, you have bedding, you have childcare products such as baby wipes, diapers, and then it also includes books. So it also includes things to enrich the learning of a child early on in its development. And what it does is that it encourages habits that promote good child development, and it helps mothers be prepared and not have to stress about having to buy things for their babies. It allows mothers to focus on just primarily childcare. And then we have La Cuarentena, which is a quarantine period that new mothers in some Latin American countries will undergo. And what it is a 6-week period, or sometimes just 40 days, where new mothers abstain from sex, certain foods like caffeine and alcohol that can pass through breast milk. And they also abstain from strenuous activity just to allow their bodies to heal. So the whole purpose of this is let the mother heal, and it also lets her know that there are people in her community that are very much involved in motherhood and that they're there to help her. So people will come in, sometimes the mother or another family member, they will help her cook and clean and care for other children that the mother may have, so that the mother can focus on bonding with her new baby and focus on that baby's childcare.
Awesome. Thank you, Lace. Next, Amanda will talk with us about a few more.
Hi. Okay, so my first practice is Sanhujori, which is a traditional practice of postpartum care in Korea. It usually lasts for a minimum of 3 weeks, but I saw where it can last for as long as they want, but sometimes up to 6 months even. The principles are very strict, and that includes keeping the body warm, staying away from cold winds, eating nutritious meals, nothing spicy, especially seaweed soup. I read one account where a woman said she ate seaweed soup pretty much for every meal for the whole 3 weeks. And they get sufficient rest and relaxation, and they prevent strain and just really focus on caring for their baby. Sanhujori services like cooking and cleaning are traditionally performed by family members, especially female family members. But in modern times, sometimes people are a little busy, so they have private centers in Korea now, and all of them are called Sanhujori ones. There's a misspelling there. Sorry about that. And so the family member will come and stay with them for the duration of the 3 weeks while the mother focuses on herself. And if Sanhujori is performed poorly, it's actually believed to lead to Sanhubyung, which is a series of non-specific and acute and chronic symptoms like malaise, fatigue, muscle and joint pains, things like that may appear at any point after childbirth. So they want to make sure that the Sanhujori is performed correctly and sufficiently. And this practice just really allows the mother to recover her health and focus on caring for her newborn instead of worrying about all of the other things in the outside world. Okay. The next one I have is called Japa, and that is the 40-day postnatal period of confinement observed in India. It's a little similar, but with its own unique aspects. The new mother is not expected to fulfill any household or workplace duties, and she is under the care of a Japapai. And she rests, follows a special diet to increase her milk production, and she and the baby undergo daily massage therapy under the care of the Japabai. And the role of the Japabai is traditionally filled by a close female relative as well. And she's seen as a source of age-old ancient wisdom, and they faithfully pass that down throughout the generations. So especially for the first newborn, this is a very important practice because this is how women learn to care for their babies. And it also allows mothers to recover, and it protects the newborn as it adjusts to a new world because visitors are not allowed and the mother is not allowed to leave during this time. Most importantly, it strengthens the bonds between the mother and the baby as they perfect the art of nursing. For anyone who's ever tried to nurse, it is very difficult, and that time is very special and sacred. Okay, and my last one is called Umugwo, and it's a traditional postnatal care practice by the Igbo people of southeastern Nigeria. And it typically lasts for 3 months. And the new mother's mother, so the grandmother's baby, lives with and cares for her daughter while taking on full-time care of the new baby. And some mothers get very excited about this. Mothers think about this for a long time, and they think about their daughters, and they really plan for these Umugwo traditions. And I saw one thing where they was saying that the most fun is had by the women who have many daughters because they get to go to different places and take care of their daughters while they go through this Umugwo. The new mother eats spicy foods in contrast to Korea, but they have pepper soup to increase their milk production and flush out blood clots. And through this tradition, the new mother learns everything she needs to know about caring for her new baby. And the new mother learns she's not alone in the community of women she has a community of women around her that'll support her in child rearing. In conclusion, there's few things as universal and unique as the birth of a baby. And every culture has birth traditions, and many of them have been around for centuries. And there's so many birth practices out there that are intriguing, and they support maternal well-being. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was excellent. We'll go ahead and start the Q&A portion of our program. If you want to bring your video online. Thank you all for presenting on a wide variety of topics. Ghana actually is well represented actually in this, more than I thought, which is great. Rachel, the first question is actually for you. It's a question about getting IRB approval for your photo elicitation project. And the question is that they weren't able to do their research because they wanted a signed consent form from every student's parents for basically like a photo for the research. Could you talk about how you navigated that?
Yeah, so IRB approval was a challenge for my research. I was able to, my research, I had approval to work with 15 and older. My university breaks it down by different age groups. But in the Solomon Islands, my main focus ended up being grade 11 students. And one of the reasons I chose them is often the Solomon students are 18 or older by the time they reach grade 11. So for those who are 18, I didn't have to get their parent approval, but for anyone that was under, which I did have some approval, their parents also had to sign a consent form. And then the other thing that I did was my IRB allowed me to teach the students what they could or could not take photos of. And then they were supposed to ask all the people who were in their photos, anybody whose face was identified, to sign that consent form. And they were supposed to ask parents as well. But because I'm not 100% sure if that was always done properly, in presentations and publications, I usually just avoid sharing the photos of anyone that's a minor. And the photos of people I showed today, I have explicit permission from those students to share them. So I'm trying to be very cautious when I do present the work because of those permissions. So it is a challenge, but it's not impossible to get around. It's something I talked to a lot of people about to figure out how I could navigate it. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. The next question is for Dr. McGadney. What surprised you most about funeral rituals in Ghana? And also, Dr. Adu, I know you commented that that presentation brought you home to Ghana. So if you want to chime in after Dr. McGadney, you're more than welcome.
Well, first, just the fact that your body can be kept in the freezer for a long time, months, years, and the first celebration that was in our guest house, they were singing music from country music from the United States. So my son and I just was amazed. Gene Autry music, I'm trying to think of who else, Dolly Parton, and then High Life music, which is their local music. The celebration of dancing and the colors. I am wearing a traditional outfit today that I had custom made for me and commissioned fabric. I wanted to just wear it for just a regular occasion in Ghana. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They're traditions. The other thing that I couldn't talk about was widows' rights. That is something that maybe not as prevalent as it used to be, because the people that I knew of and 20 years ago, these are their family members. But my students, when I taught at the University of Ghana, introduced me to widows' rights. And those are some rituals that mostly women have to go through that can be humiliating for many women. So yeah, those are some of the things that surprised me.
Dr. Adu, do you want to add about why this brought you back home and
well,
your feelings of the presentation?
I think it was the ritualistic aspect of funerals and how rituals, the different rituals of dress and rituals of music. And yes, indeed, because funerals are a celebration of life, we do have a wide range of music. And ironically, it's music from maybe the 70s and that is quite 70s and 80s that are very, very popular, the popular music, global popular music that becomes part of the music that's played for dancing, because you dance and you celebrate the life of the person. There's a lot of drama also that goes along with funerals. I just remember my own father, and just because he was a medical officer, you would see people dramatizing, giving injections and things like that as they dance. Those rituals are all supposed to help you grieve in the grieving process. And even the rituals of dress and the right colors to wear at different ages, it sort of provides that sense of belonging and solidarity with a person who is over 70. Yes, we're celebrating, you did make it 3 score years and 10. And so you can wear black and white, and then, or white on the Sunday when we have a whole big Thanksgiving service. It's a whole drawn out ritual, but it helps us. The other thing about bodies being in fridges and morgues for over a year, usually that happens with people who are royal. And so with chiefs and things like that, they can't, we don't even announce that they're dead until after a week of their death. And then after that, we start thinking about the process. And so that can take a month or a year, because everybody has to be notified. All the different chiefs in the constituent has to be notified and things like that. So yes, she took me home, just hearing the music and seeing the rituals again. It was beautiful. Thank you, Dr. McCartney.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Dr. Saylor, do you have any advice for healthcare professionals? Maybe some of Neil's, some of the doctors with Neil, who may want to kind of follow your model of starting something new in a country overseas?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things to consider. So first is the sustainability aspect. So it's great to go in and start training, but if there's, you need to have local partners, you need to have a transition plan so that the program you're beginning can continue to have a lasting impact. And, I think going in as a learner, just like all of us do as Fulbrighters. I mean, I certainly had a lot of neurology knowledge that was not at all applicable to the Zambian setting. And so going in as a complete learner initially and learning from my colleagues first, and then learning how to share and apply the knowledge I had in a relevant way. So I think many people, medicine in particular, has a really strong and unfortunate history of parachuting in and coming in thinking that you're going to be teaching. But I think really going in as the learner is a key as well.
That's excellent advice. Dr. Neil, there's a question for you, a couple. One is, some of the practices include fathers, some of these practices? And also another question is, some cultures do spicy food, some don't. Is there a right way to do it?
Okay, so for the father's question, we're OBGYNs here, so we focus mainly on maternal health. However, the Sanhujori practice actually specifically excludes fathers. They're not supposed to be around. And for the Mugwo tradition, we have fathers are traditionally supposed to give their mother-in-law a gift when she leaves the Amugwo. And so they're responsible for figuring out the gift and giving their mother-in-law a gift for staying with them and helping his wife and child. And I mean, in America, if you think about it, we have our own traditions as well for the fathers. They cut the umbilical cord, and push presents are also another one that's out there and is relatively new.
I think it's a great question. Historically, in a lot of cultures, giving birth and caring for newborn moms and new mothers has largely been, that role's largely been taken care of by women. Certainly in the United States, we see some efforts. We need more efforts to incorporate fathers. You see more and more companies giving fathers paternity time that they can play a role in help caring for their moms and newborns. But certainly across the globe in the United States, we certainly need to incorporate males more into the caring of our new mothers and of our new babies. And then the second question was spicy foods. I think both are right, especially both the traditions with my wife is actually Nigerian. She's not Igbo, she's Yoruba. But so I've had pepper soup before. It is incredibly spicy. I can only eat a few bites without having to drink some milk or eat some bread. But it's it's made of vegetables, and just like the Korean dish with the spinach and seaweed, they're both healthy dishes. And so I think the reasoning behind it isn't necessarily as important as they're healthy dishes that are part of people's culture, and the belief behind it is that it promotes healing. So I think healthy eating and belief in healing is what's most important. So I would say they're both correct.
All right. Dr. Winger, there's a question in here for you. What advice would you give to other Fulbrighters on how to stay in touch with relationships and friendships you made during your Fulbright, or Fulbrights in your case?
Staying in touch. Well, one of the things that I do, I'm not so sure this is for everyone, but my wife and I do every year have sort of the annual form letter and send that out. And I'd say every year, at least we get one or two responses from people that we just were not expecting from a previous Fulbright kind of a thing. They do fizzle sometimes. So maybe both sides are at fault for that kind of thing. I mean, maybe one of the tips I would give is, even when you're on the Fulbright, we get busy, but also take the time to have those conversations where you're sitting down and you're finding out about people's families and so forth, that kind of thing.
Thank you. Yeah. Form letters are kind of a dying art, but I think they'll make a comeback. I feel like people are going to get internet out, and people are going to want some hard copy stuff.
Well, you're looking at someone who doesn't do Facebook or social media, so maybe if we do away with social media, form letters might come back.
When I was an international admissions counselor, we used to send some postcards to international students, and they would email back and say, "This is the first piece of mail I've received in my life." I mean, they're younger, but mail it's still cool, so that's good. We have another question for Dr. McGadney. How do you think that the way funerals integrate celebration of life and draws in community affects how the elders are treated and taken care of? We heard another presentation on how elders in the cultures are falling through the cracks and not getting the care they need. Does Ghana have something to teach us in this regard?
Well, there are lots of changes going on even in Ghana. People are being displaced from the young people moving into the urban areas for employment. Probably climate change is affecting. So you have more Ghanaian elders who are not cared for as they have been in the past. I think by and large they still are, but it's something that's of great concern. Even with the wrapping of the cloth for the funeral, the Ashanti, the young man who's now in his 40s in the UK, was my student in 2001, 2002. They need to teach them that now in school. He knew all the different wraps. We had a lot of fun. But that's a dying culture, and it's something that people are very concerned about. Even the cloth I have on today, the symbols are actually embedded in this cloth, but it is very, very old. A lot of the cloth now is coming from other parts of the world. It's very cheap. It's not made the same. And so I think that there is much alarm. And when I was there, Dr. App, she's now deceased, Nana App, was one of the premier persons who worked in the field of gerontology, and I'm a gerontologist, worked in the field of gerontology for the country of Ghana. And so, yes, it's a concern. It's very much a concern.
Thank you. I want to open it up to the panel. If you have any other questions for each other, I wanted to give you that chance. Otherwise, I'll keep asking questions, which I can keep going, but I wanted to open it up.
Can I make one comment to Dr. Huben, Neil? This is my birthday. My son was born 33 years ago today.
Oh, happy birthday. Yes. And
yeah. So your lecture, your presentation resonated with me.
Oh,
I know where I was 33 years ago today.
Yes, ma'am. Is there any
University of Chicago Hospital?
Oh, okay. Well, congratulations to you and to your son. Is there any traditions in Ghanaian culture related to birthing or taking care of new mothers?
Well, I'm going to probably let Dr. Kosawa answer that. Only thing I can say is that certainly the naming ceremony is very significant. And my research was looking at children who had survived kwashiorkor. So I was actually looking at the role of grandmothers in urban Accra, Ghana, and how they facilitated their daughters to get their young toddlers to the polyclinics to be treated for kwashiorkor. So even in an urban area where there was much food, there was much lack of knowledge about proper food to be given to young children.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and usually in Ghana, when a baby has been born, the mother is, of course, showered with a lot of attention and usually wears white to celebrate life and everything. And she's looked after. She hardly does anything. And then on the 7th day, they have this big outdooring, and she's donned, and the baby is named, and but she's essentially looked after. Mothers come from the village and come and spend time with her and help her with mothering, and all those are the rituals that are attached to a new mother in Ghana. Whereas blue and white is the color for celebrating a new life. So usually pampered by everyone.
Is it spicy? Is it spicy food or no?
Our food is spicy. It's West African. Okay. It's like Nigerian food, so it's spicy. So and it depends upon what she's craving, and
Well, I've got another question for you then. Who's got the better jollof rice?
Oh yes, that is always a political one.
You don't ask that. The Ghanaians have the best.
That is yes. Ghanaians and Nigerians have an ongoing fight about it. I'll say Ghana is the best.
So Neil,
I have to respectfully disagree. But
Neil, my DNA says I'm 66% Nigerian, but I tell you, and I guess with this gap and having twins in my family, I'm an identical twin. So a lot of people think that I'm definitely from Nigeria, but I've been to Ghana so much that I have to side with the Ghanaians.
Actually, the Yoruba people have the highest twin birth rate in the world.
They have a lot.
So it's that if you have twins in your family, it's
most likely I didn't know that. Interesting.
I'm second born.
Well, there's some debate as to why it is. One thought is that it could be genetic, but the other thought is that it is related to yam consumption. Indeed. And that yams have a lot of estrogen in it, and it may increase spontaneous ovulation. So it could be genetic, or it could be just good eating.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much to our entire panel, and thank you for sharing all of your research, your photos, your videos, and your passions in life. A virtual round of applause from the audience. They're probably giving a standing ovation. You just can't see them. So
thank you.
Thank you so much. And if you'd like to also put in the chat as we're departing, if you have email address or organizations that you're working with, please put that in the chat under everyone so people can get in touch with you or support the organizations that you're part of. And thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Next up, we will have session number 8, education, which will start at 3:45 p.m.